She appears before a millionaire CEO with a child who reveals a secret he hid for years. Do you want him to hate you the way I did? Mila's voice was barely more than a whisper, but it sliced through the quiet living room like glass. Leander stood near the door with his coat in his hand. His jaw was tight. His eyes were red in a way Mila had never seen, even in their worst fights. Aaron sat on the floor between them, a small plastic truck forgotten in his hand. The cartoons on the television played quietly, blue and gold light flickering against his cheeks. He could feel it. The grown-up storm. The tension humming above his head. Answer me, Leander. Mila's eyes shone, not with anger but with a grief she had fought for years to bury. Do you want him to grow up wondering why his father walked away from him twice? Leander's fingers clenched around the coat. His voice came out rough. I am not walking away. Then what are you doing? Her chin trembled once before she swallowed it back. You packed a bag. You waited until he fell asleep. You were going to leave without saying goodbye. Again. Leander closed his eyes for a moment like her words hurt physically. When he looked at her again, everything in his expression was raw. I was going to get out of your way. His voice broke on the last word. You keep telling me you do not trust me. That I already did enough damage. I thought maybe the kindest thing I could do was disappear. Something inside Mila cracked at that, but she did not let it show. She took a small step closer, her bare feet silent against the floorboards. The kindest thing you can do is stay and learn how to be the man you should have been from the beginning, she said. If you walk out that door tonight, you do not come back. Not as his father. Not as anything. A small voice cut through the air. Daddy. Both of them froze. Aaron had turned around. His little fingers were wrapped around the toy, his lower lip quivering. Sleepiness had softened his face, but his eyes were wide and bright with confusion. Are you leaving again? The word again landed like thunder. Leander stared at his son. At the boy who had his eyes and his stubborn mouth and the same crease near his temple that surfaced when he concentrated. He dropped the coat. It fell to the floor with a dull thud. In that instant, everything slowed. The air between them thickened. The choice that had haunted 4 years of his life stood in front of him, made flesh and bone in a 4-year-old voice. No board. No headlines. No empire. Just a child asking if his father was going to disappear. Leander took a step forward. His voice shook. No, he whispered. I am not leaving. He crossed the room and knelt until he was eye level with Aaron. His hands trembled, but he kept them gentle. I am not leaving you, he said again, firmer this time. Not ever again. Aaron searched his face with a seriousness that no child his age should have needed. Then he reached out one small hand and placed it on his father's cheek. You promise? Leander swallowed. I promise, he said, the words tasting like an oath he should have made 4 years ago. And this time I am going to keep it. The room went silent except for the soft murmur of the television. Mila stood still, one hand pressed to her mouth, watching the man who had once shattered her learn how to hold something without breaking it. Maybe, she thought, this is what redemption really looks like. Not a grand gesture. Just a man who finally chooses to stay. There are moments that crack a life clean in two. Before. And after. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you have stood in a doorway, or sat in a parked car, or stared at a ceiling in the middle of the night and realized that one choice years ago is still echoing through everything you love now. What happens when a man who built an entire empire on control is forced to face the one truth he spent years running from? What happens when the child he never knew he had looks him in the eyes and asks the question he deserves the least to answer? And what happens to the woman who had to raise that child alone, carrying both love and betrayal in the same heart? Stay with me. Because this is not just a story about wealth and power. It is not just about a millionaire CEO and the secret he tried to bury in boardrooms and headlines. This is a story about fear. About selfishness. About second chances that do not erase the past but give the future a new direction. If stories of love, regret, and slow, painful redemption mean something to you, take a moment now. Like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next story that might speak to you when you need it most. Now, let us go back. Back to the morning when he first saw the child with his eyes. It was just past 7 in the morning when the elevator doors slid open onto the marbled lobby of the Lysander Hotel. The city was still half asleep. Snowflakes clung stubbornly to the glass of the revolving doors. Streetlights outside flickered in the soft gray of early winter, casting puddles of pale gold over the slush on the pavement. Inside, the lobby was a quiet storm of movement. Bellhops rolled carts stacked with luggage. Guests fumbled for room keys. A woman in a navy suit hurried past, balancing a phone against her shoulder and a laptop bag at her side. Everything hummed with the familiar friction of lives in motion. And then time stopped. She stood near the center of the lobby, facing the windows. Her coat was too thin for December. Beige fabric belted tight around a slender frame, sleeves frayed just enough at the edges to reveal they had weathered more than one season. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot at the nape of her neck. A few dark curls had escaped, haloing her cheeks, which were flushed from the cold air outside. Mila Rohn. A name that hit Leander Drake's chest before his mind caught up. He stepped out of the elevator and felt his body falter, just slightly. To anyone watching, it would have looked like nothing. A pause in the stride of a man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. A brief hesitation from someone thinking through his first meeting of the day. But inside, something in him jolted so hard he almost reached for the wall. For years he had trained himself out of reacting. Out of showing surprise. The markets could crash and he would blink once, adjust, and give an order. Reporters could shove microphones in his face and he would offer the same calm, measured answers. But he had never prepared for this. She turned at the sound of the elevator chime. Not toward him. Just toward the lobby, scanning for something. Maybe the front desk. Maybe the restaurant. Maybe the exit. That was when he saw the child. The boy stood half a step behind her, one small hand hooked into the side of her coat. His jacket was zipped up to his chin. A knitted hat sat slightly crooked on his head. Dark curls pushed out around his ears. His cheeks were rosy from the cold. He looked up. Their eyes met. The world narrowed to a point. The boy's eyes were the exact same shade as Leander's. Not similar. Not close. Exact. The same deep brown with flecks of amber near the center. The same slight upward tilt that appeared when he was curious. The same way the lashes framed them, thick and dark as if someone had traced them carefully. In that instant, sound bled out of the room. The clatter of suitcases and the murmur of conversations faded into a distant hum. All Leander could hear was the rush of his own pulse. No. His mind reached for logic, for numbers and variables, like he always did when something felt out of control. Coincidence is possible. Genetics are complicated. Children sometimes look like strangers. But then the boy tilted his head, just so, a tiny movement that mirrored something Leander had seen in the mirror for decades. A crease appeared between his brows as he studied this stranger who had suddenly gone still. Leander forgot to breathe. Mila. Her name left him before he decided to say it. Soft at first, then louder as disbelief wrapped around every letter. Mila. She went completely still. Slowly, she turned toward the voice she had once fallen asleep listening to, the voice that had once promised her things in the dark that the morning stole away. Her gaze collided with his. If there had been even a flicker of surprise in her eyes, he might have believed this was an accident. That the city had simply curled in on itself and dropped them in the same place at the same time. But there was no surprise. Her expression was calm. Controlled. Almost too neutral. The kind of expression a person builds carefully over many nights, teaching themselves not to react. I expected this day. You did not. That was what her eyes said. His throat tightened. Mila, he said again, as if repeating her name might somehow rewind the last 4 years. She did not smile. She did not move toward him or away from him. She simply shifted her grip, her hand leaving the side of her coat to rest over the boy's small shoulder. Protective. Instinctive. The child pressed closer to her. His fingers curled into the fabric near her hip. Leander's gaze fell, almost unwillingly, to the boy's face. Soft jawline. Dark curls. The exact tilt of the eyes. A faint, familiar birthmark at the edge of his jaw. So small most people would never notice it. He had the same mark. The lobby spun. How old is he? Leander asked. The words came out lower than he intended, nearly scraping his throat on the way out. Mila's lips parted as if the question hit a nerve she had locked away. There was a brief movement in her eyes, as if she were weighing something. Whether to lie. Whether to tell the truth. Whether he had earned either. 4, she said quietly. 4. The number hit like a punch to the stomach. 4 years. 4 years since he walked out of the small apartment they had shared with a suitcase and a promise to call that he never kept. 4 years since he listened to a board member whisper that he was risking everything he had worked for on a woman who did not fit the picture they had painted for him. 4 years since he let fear dress itself up as strategy and called it maturity. 4 years since he told himself that love could wait. He did not know it had already taken root. He did not know it had a heartbeat. He did not know it had eyes that would look at him like this one day. The boy stared at him, curious. Not frightened. Just confused by the intense focus of a stranger in an expensive suit. "Mama, who is that?" he asked, voice small and clear. Mila's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on his shoulder. "No one you need to worry about," she said. The words sliced clean. Leander's jaw clenched. "Mila," he said, taking a step forward before he even realized he was moving. "Is he?" She cut him off, her voice sharper this time. "He is fine. That is not what I was going to ask." "I know." Her eyes flashed. Not with loud anger, but with something deeper. Contained. Controlled. The revolving doors opened behind him with a soft rush of air. A gust of cold swept through the lobby, carrying the metallic scent of snow. Mila instinctively angled her body, positioning herself between the child and the doors, shielding him from the chill. He watched that simple movement and felt something crack in the center of his chest. He had never seen her like that before. Not the woman who had laughed with him about missed trains and overcooked pasta. Not the photographer who used to crouch in the middle of busy streets to catch the perfect shot of strangers. This was a mother. A woman who had had to become everything for a small person whose father was absent even in memory. He swallowed. "I need to know," he said. His voice dropped so low it barely carried. "Is he mine?" Silence thickened the space between them. The boy looked up again, eyes going from one adult to the other, sensing that something important was being decided without him. Mila held Leander's gaze. No flinching. No softening. "He is yours," she said. The words did not explode. They settled over the marble and gold of the hotel lobby like snow. Soft. Soundless. Deadly in its weight. Leander felt something shatter behind his ribs. Years of carefully stacked decisions toppled in an instant. He did not move. Could not move. He remembered signing deals while somewhere a belly swelled with his child. He remembered celebrating promotions while a woman he once promised to love forever sat alone in the dark, holding a hand over a life he did not know existed. He remembered giving interviews about legacy while his actual legacy learned to speak a first word he never heard. All of it pressed into that one small sentence. He is yours. For the first time in a very long time, Leander Drake had no words. For years earlier, long before the Lysander lobby held its breath around them, Leander had been the kind of man people made up stories about. Depending on who told the story, he was either a genius or a machine. He had the kind of mind that could look at a set of numbers once and see patterns most analysts needed 3 reports to notice. He was the youngest partner his firm had ever named. Articles called him the future face of the Drake Empire, a family line carved out of old money, steel, and quiet ruthlessness. He dressed the part. Impeccable suits. Watches that could pay someone's rent for a year. A car that purred more than it roared. To the world he looked complete. Inside, everything was segmented. There was a box for numbers. A box for strategy. A box for risk. A box for reputation. There was no box for love. He did not say that out loud, of course. He dated. He took women to dinners at places where the plates were heavy and the lighting made everyone look like they belonged in a magazine. He had learned how to make people feel seen in the way that closed deals and opened doors. But no one got deep enough to move anything inside the carefully arranged rooms of his life. Until the day a camera strap and an apologetic smile knocked everything sideways. The first time he saw Mila, she was running. Not away from something. Toward a moment she refused to miss. He had just stepped out of a downtown building, the glass doors closing behind him with a quiet sigh. His mind was still half in a numbers report his assistant had handed him on his way out. The sky above the city was a hard blue, the kind that comes after rain scrubs everything clean. He checked his watch. He had exactly 11 minutes to get to his next meeting on foot if he walked fast. He lifted his gaze just as a blur of movement cut across his path. A woman darted from the curb, camera in hand, jogging backward to frame a shot of an elderly couple crossing the street. Her brown boots splashed through a shallow puddle. Her bag banged against her hip. A camera strap looped around her neck hung loose, swinging precariously. "Excuse me," he began automatically, instinctively stepping to the side. She stepped at the same time. They collided. Her bag slipped off her shoulder. The camera wobbled and swung forward. The lens hit the sidewalk with a sickening crack. "Oh no. No no no." Her voice was soft, laced with a kind of horror reserved for broken lives or broken art. She dropped to her knees immediately, gathering spilled items with quick, shaky hands. A notebook. A cheap phone. A pen with teeth marks near the cap. "I am so sorry," she said, not even looking at him yet, eyes locked instead on the crack that now spiderwebbed across the lens. "I should not have walked backwards. I was not paying attention. This is the 3rd time this month I nearly break something and this time I actually did. Of course. Of course it happens today." Her words tumbled over each other in a rush, like she had opened a tap and did not quite know how to close it. Leander looked down, expecting irritation to rise. This city was full of people who thought they could fling themselves across sidewalks and the world would rearrange around them. But irritation never came. Instead, he heard himself say, "Let me see." She glanced up then. Their eyes met. Something in his chest skipped. Her eyes were a warm, deep brown, framed by lashes that curled upward at the edges. There was a tiny freckle near the left one, right below the lower lash. Her hair was pulled back messily, like she had done it in a hurry, more concerned about efficiency than perfection. A smudge of something gray sat on her cheek. Pencil lead, maybe. Or charcoal. She blinked once at him, surprised by the request, then handed him the camera. "It is not your responsibility," she said quickly. I ran into you. You were just existing, like a normal person who does not ruin expensive things on the street. He examined the lens carefully. Years of living surrounded by expensive toys had taught him the difference between cosmetic damage and real catastrophe. This was real. It will need to be repaired, he said. Her shoulders slumped. She let out a breath that sounded like it carried more than the weight of one broken lens. The program is going to kill me, she murmured. It is not even my camera. It belongs to the community center. We share equipment. I signed it out like a responsible adult. I promised I would bring it back in one piece. She lifted a hand and pressed her fingers against her temples for a second, eyes closing briefly. This is going to be fun to explain. Program, he repeated. She opened her eyes again, noticing she still knelt at his feet. With an awkward little laugh, she pushed herself up, brushing at her coat. It was beige then too, though newer. There was paint on one sleeve. I work part-time at an arts program for kids, she said. They do not exactly pay enough for me to replace this. Or myself, honestly. Not that I would. Replace myself, I mean. I am useful. Sometimes. He did not smile easily. He did not have to. People laughed at his jokes out of politeness or fear or both. But something about the self-deprecating warmth in her voice tugged at the corners of his mouth. Let me fix it, he heard himself say. She blinked. You did not break it. Neither did you, he countered. Gravity did. And I know a place that can repair it. I cannot let you pay for that. Do you have any idea how much these lenses cost? I do, he said. That is why I know I can afford it. She stared at him like she was trying to see the catch. Why would you do that for a stranger? The question hung between them. Because this is the first time in a long time something collided with my day and did not leave me bored. Because I want to see you smile without all that panic in your eyes. Because I can. He chose the safest answer. Call it an apology, he said simply. She exhaled a breath that might have been a laugh. You were just walking, she said. You do not owe me anything. Let me do it anyway. She looked at him for a long second, as if measuring his sincerity against some internal scale. Then she nodded slowly. Fine, she said. But I am coming with you. I am not letting a stranger disappear with my camera. That is how horror stories start. Then you will have to walk fast, he said. I have a meeting in an hour. She raised a brow. You fix strangers' cameras between meetings often. First time. So I am special. The words slipped out of her mouth light and teasing. She seemed to realize it a moment later, a faint blush climbing up her neck. He surprised himself by answering honestly. Yes, he said. She looked away quickly, biting the inside of her cheek to hide a smile. I am Mila, she offered. Leander. Interesting name. Likewise. They started walking, the cracked lens nestled carefully in his hand, neither of them knowing that a broken piece of glass on a city sidewalk was about to rearrange every line of both their lives. The repair shop sat 3 blocks away, tucked between a bakery and a dry cleaner, down a narrow street that smelled faintly of sugar and steam. The owner knew him by name. Money made introductions easier. The promise of a lasting relationship made it profitable to remember those names. He passed the lens across the counter with a quiet request for urgency. The owner nodded, gave an estimate, and promised a quick turnaround. Mila watched the entire exchange with cautious fascination. You really just did that, she said as they stepped back outside. It seemed important, he replied. You do not even know me. Yet. The word hung there, gently daring. She tilted her head, studying him. You are not as scary as your suit suggests, she decided. I will take that as a compliment. It is one, she said. Most people in suits walk past us like we are scenery. Us. The people who do not fit in marble lobbies, she said with a small shrug. The ones who get paint on their sleeves and forget what day it is because they are too busy trying to make something beautiful out of nothing. He thought of his corner office with its skyline view and perfect order. Of his assistant with her color-coded calendar. Of his father's voice repeating phrases like liability and image and long-term positioning. "You seem to fit just fine," he said. She grinned at that, brief and bright. It hit him like sunlight. "Careful," she teased. Flattery is a dangerous tool. And broken cameras are not. "At least with cameras I know what I am doing," she said. "With people I am still learning." Me too. The meeting he had been heading to existed somewhere in another version of his morning, one where he stepped out of the building and turned left instead of colliding with a woman carrying too much and apologizing for existing. In this version, he walked her back to the Community Arts Center. The building was old brick, its windows filled with color. Child-sized handprints decorated a mural near the entrance. Someone had painted a crooked sun in the corner. "This is me," she said, stopping at the door. "Well, not literally me, obviously. This is my workplace. I do not live here. That would be weird." He found himself lingering, reluctant to step back into his original schedule. "You mentioned kids," he said. "You teach them." "Photography and messy creativity," she answered. The official description says something inspiring about giving children tools to tell their own stories. Mostly they just end up with glitter in their hair and pictures of their shoes. But sometimes, one of them catches a moment in a way that makes me forget to breathe. Her eyes softened when she talked about them. It was the first time he saw that kind of tenderness in someone that was not attached to an agenda. "You like it," he observed. "I love it," she corrected. "It does not love me back financially, but we are working on that boundary. You could do something else. Something more stable." "Like what?" He almost said what his world always said. "Something real. Something that fits." Instead he caught himself. "You could do anything," he said. "You seem capable." "You do not even know me," she reminded him again, but there was less suspicion this time. More quiet curiosity. "Not yet," he repeated. She smiled, slow and genuine. "Thank you for the lens," she said. "You did not have to do that." "Maybe I did," he replied. She glanced at the clock mounted inside the doorway. "You are going to be late for your meeting." "Yes. You should go. Save the world. Move money around. Scare people in other suits. Is that what you think I do?" "I think you look like someone whose calendar has opinions," she said. "But also like someone who is more tired than he lets on." No one talked to him like that. He liked it more than he wanted to admit. "Let me take you for coffee when the lens is ready," he said. It was not a line. It did not come wrapped in practiced charm. It was simply a request. She considered him, hand on the doorknob, snow starting to drift again in thin flakes around them. "Only if we go somewhere with terrible chairs and good pastries," she bargained. "No fancy places where the spoons weigh more than my rent." "Deal." He watched her walk through the door. She turned once and waved, small and almost shy, then disappeared into a hallway lined with paper drawings and laughter. He checked his watch. His meeting was beginning without him. For the first time in as long as he could remember, he did not feel guilty. He felt awake. People tell themselves stories to make sense of the choices they make. When Leander stopped calling Mila, when he let her texts go unanswered long enough that her name stopped lighting up his phone, he told himself it was temporary. Just until the board stopped looking so closely at his personal life. Just until the rumors about his relationship quieted down. Just until the tension between him and his father eased enough that a woman like her would not be another point on a list of disappointments. He told himself he was protecting her from the scrutiny that came with his world. He was lying. He was protecting himself. He remembered the conversation that tipped the scales. The boardroom was all glass and steel, the city spread out beyond it in squares and lines. Men and women in expensive clothing sat around the table with the careful stillness of people who were used to being listened to. "Optics matter, Leander," one of the senior partners said, tapping a manicured finger against a file. "You are being positioned as the next public face of this firm. Of this family. Investors want stability. They want a certain image." "You mean they want a certain kind of woman standing beside me in photographs," he said coolly. A small smile curved the partner's lips. "I see you understand. She is not a liability," he said. "She works with children. She has her own life. She is not interested in your world." "That is precisely the problem," another board member interjected. "She does not belong to this world. She does not understand what is at stake." "What is at stake?" he echoed. "Everything," his father said quietly from the head of the table. Leander turned to look at him. The older man's hair had gone silver at the temples in a way that added to his authority rather than softened it. His gaze was steady. "We built this," his father said. "Brick by brick. Deal by deal. I am not saying you cannot have a personal life. But you do not get to be careless with it. You cannot afford distractions, especially emotional ones. Not now. Emotion is a distraction." The sentence lodged itself somewhere behind his sternum. "What are you afraid of?" Leander asked. "That she will ask me to walk away from all this. I am afraid that you will not be able to think clearly when it matters," his father replied. "That you will start prioritizing the wrong things. I have seen it happen before. Men like us do not get to make those mistakes. Men like us." For a moment, the room blurred. He thought of the nights with Mila in that small apartment, eating instant noodles because she had spent her paycheck on a new set of brushes for the art program. He thought of the way her face lit up when she talked about capturing truth in a frame. He thought of the way she had looked at him like he was a person, not a balance sheet. He also thought of the thrill of closing his first major international deal. The satisfaction of proving himself in rooms where his last name opened the door but his work kept him at the table. He wanted both. The board was telling him he could not. "You need to make a choice," the senior partner said gently. "You cannot have everything." Later, he would realize that was a lie too. The choice was never between Mila and his legacy. It was between fear and courage. But at the time, the weight of expectation and history felt heavier than the weight of one woman's heart. He told himself he would call her after the deal closed. He told himself he would explain. He told himself she would understand. Instead, he let the distance stretch. One day without calling became 2. 2 became 4. She sent messages at first. Light ones. Then worried ones. Then one that simply said, "I do not know what I did wrong, but can you please just tell me?" He stared at it for a long time. He put the phone down. He told himself he would answer tomorrow. By the time he picked it up again, her name was gone from the notifications. A week later he changed his number after a security briefing that had nothing to do with her, but effectively cut off the last easy way she had to reach him. Months passed. He moved offices. He changed addresses. He stepped fully into the life the board had offered him. He stopped walking past the community arts center. He told himself that chapter was over. He did not know another one had already begun inside her. Back in the Lysander lobby, standing in front of the woman he had left and the child he had never known he had, all those stories he had told himself collapsed. He took another step closer. "Mila," he said slowly, carefully. "Why did you not tell me?" She let out a soft sound that might have been a humorless laugh. "I tried," she said. "You made it very difficult." "How?" You blocked my number. He frowned. That was for work security. Maybe, she allowed. But you also never gave me another way to reach you. I went to your building. The doorman told me you had moved to a different address. When I asked where, he said he was not allowed to say. Your assistant said your schedule was too busy for personal matters. Your new office had glass walls and guards who looked at me like I was lost. Her gaze was steady. At some point, Leander, it becomes very clear that a person does not want to be found. He felt the words like stones dropping into a well. You were pregnant, he said, barely managing the word. Yes. And you were alone. Yes. The boy shifted beside her, bored with the stillness. He tugged at her coat. Mama, I am cold, he murmured. The sweetness of the complaint twisted something in him. Mila looked down, her expression softening instantly. I know, sweetheart, she said. We will go inside in a second. He watched the way she adjusted his hat, tugged it gently over his ears, zipped his jacket a little higher. Simple movements. Ordinary. And yet he could not look away. Mila, I did not know, he said. I swear to you I did not know. You did not ask, she replied quietly. She turned then, guiding the boy toward the restaurant entrance. His small boots squeaked faintly against the polished floor. Without thinking, Leander reached out, his hand closing around the air where her sleeve had been a second before. Wait. She stopped but did not turn fully back. What do you want, Leander? He had spent his life knowing the answer to that question. He could list objectives and projections in his sleep. Now, confronted with the child who shared his eyes and the woman whose gaze had once made him feel found, he realized he did not have language for what surged through him. I want to understand, he said finally. That is not an answer, she replied. Understanding will not rewind 4 years. I want to know him, he said, the words tumbling out faster now. I want to know you. Again. If you will let me. She turned back fully then, and for the first time since he had said her name, emotion moved openly across her face. You lost that right, she said. She did not raise her voice. It landed harder because of that. He looked at the boy, at the faint smudge of chocolate near his lip, at the way his little hand trusted the hold it had on his mother's coat. Maybe I did, he said. But I am asking anyway. Something flickered in her eyes. A memory, maybe. Him showing up at the art center with coffee and pastries in a paper bag. Him falling asleep on her couch with financial reports on his chest while she edited photos at 2 in the morning. Him laughing when she put flour on his nose. Then that flicker vanished. We are going to have breakfast, she said. You have meetings. Your empire will miss you. I can cancel. You would cancel your meetings for a woman and a child you walked away from once already, her mouth twisted. That does not sound like you. You do not know me anymore, he said quietly. Maybe not, she conceded. But I know what you chose. She started walking again. This time, he did not let the distance grow. He followed. Snow pressed lightly against the glass as they entered the hotel cafe. Warm air drifted out to meet them, carrying the scent of cinnamon, roasted beans, and something buttery. The morning crowd had begun to settle. A man in a leather jacket scrolled through his phone at the counter. A young couple shared a pastry, laughing softly at something private. The low hum of conversation filled the space in a gentle wave. Mila guided Aaron to an empty booth near the window. She helped him climb into the seat before sliding in beside him. She kept her hand on his back a moment longer than necessary. Maybe to comfort him. Maybe to comfort herself. Leander stood at the edge of the table. May I sit? Mila did not look up. You can stand or sit or leave. It makes no difference to us. Her voice carried no bite. It was simply exhausted. Leander sat across from them. Aaron tapped his fingers lightly on the table, humming a tune under his breath, oblivious to the emotional battlefield between his mother and the stranger who kept staring at him like he held the answer to every unasked question. A waitress approached with a polite smile. "Good morning. What can I get you?" Mila cleared her throat. "Pancakes for him. No syrup. Just fruit." The waitress nodded, scribbling. "You." "Coffee," Mila said. She glanced briefly at Leander, then exhaled. "Anne." "Another coffee. For him." The waitress smiled again. "Back in a moment." When she walked away, silence stretched thin between them. Leander studied the little boy across the table. Aaron swung his legs gently under the seat. His small hands traced invisible shapes on the glass of the window. He hummed with the kind of absent innocence that made guilt land even heavier in Leander's chest. "You do not have to stare at him like that," Mila said quietly. He blinked. "I am not staring. I am trying to understand." "There is nothing to understand. He exists. You did not. That is the story." "Mila." She finally looked at him. Really looked. Her eyes were tired, not from the morning cold, but from years of holding up too much on her own. "You left," she said softly. "You left when I needed you most. You left before I even knew how to tell you that everything was about to change." Her voice carried a subtle tremor, quickly subdued. "And now you show up suddenly and I am supposed to let you drop into his life as if you never disappeared." Leander inhaled slowly. "No," he said. "I do not expect that." "What do you expect then?" He looked at Aaron, then at her. "I expect to have to prove myself. I expect to be doubted. I expect anger. I deserve all of that." Something flickered in her expression, a quick flash of pain mixed with disbelief. "Deserve," she repeated softly. "You think this is about deserving, you think this is about punishment. What is it about?" Her fingers stilled on the table. "It is about protecting him." The words softened something in him, even as they pushed him further away. Aaron looked up then, eyes bright. "Mama, can I have orange juice?" "Of course, sweetheart." He nodded and slid off the seat, toddling toward the counter with the sugar packets he had spotted earlier. Mila quickly followed. "Aaron, no sugar, remember." "But they look like tiny papers," he said. "They are sugar." "Oh." Leander watched them. A perfect, ordinary moment. A mother guiding her child. A child learning boundaries. A dynamic that had developed entirely without him. When they returned to the booth, Aaron held a menu upside down like he was reading it. Leander swallowed. "Mila," he said quietly. "I am sorry." She blinked. "Not for the years lost, because no apology can fix that," he continued. "But for not being there. For not knowing. For not asking. For not fighting for you when I should have." She looked away quickly. "Do not do that," she whispered. "Do not use regret like a gift you think I want." He opened his mouth, but she lifted a hand. "Just, let us get through breakfast, please." He nodded. The food arrived shortly after. Aaron dug into his pancakes with pure enthusiasm. Syrup dripped onto the side of his plate, and he giggled when a piece of strawberry slipped from his fork. Leander felt something strange tug at him. A warmth he did not recognize. Something close to longing. When Aaron's fingers got sticky, he reached for the napkin holder with a tiny grunt. "I can help," Leander offered, reaching instinctively. Aaron looked at him with wide eyes, then at Mila. She hesitated. Then she nodded. Aaron handed the napkin to Leander. He cleaned the boy's hands with slow, careful movements, terrified of doing anything wrong. Aaron smiled up at him, showing a small gap where a baby tooth had fallen out. "You have the same eyes as me," Aaron said. The simplicity of the statement hit harder than any accusation. Mila's breath caught. Leander's throat tightened. "Do I?" he asked gently. Aaron nodded. "Mama says my eyes are special." "Your eyes are very special," Leander murmured. The little boy beamed. Leander's hands trembled the whole time he wiped the syrup from the corners of the child's mouth. He wondered how many times he should have done this. How many breakfasts he never saw. How many mornings he traded for boardrooms and deals and a legacy that suddenly felt meaningless. Mila watched him. Not with relief. Not with forgiveness. But with something more complicated. A recalibration. A test. A question forming quietly in the space between mother and man. Is he capable of being more than the mistake he made? After breakfast, Mila rose from the booth and helped Aaron with his jacket. The little boy wriggled as she tugged the zipper. Leander stood. "I will walk you out." "You do not have to," she replied. "I know." Aaron reached for her hand and tugged. "Mama, can we go to the park later?" "Maybe," she said. "If it is not too cold." They stepped into the lobby again. The revolving doors spun lazily, snow drifting in patterns as if the morning had decided to linger. They reached the entrance. Mila turned to him. "We need to go," she said. Leander's jaw flexed. "When can I see you again?" Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You think this is a schedule we can pencil in?" "No. He swallowed. "I do not want to lose you. Either of you. You cannot lose what was never yours to begin with," she said softly. Aaron tugged her hand. "Mama, my shoelace," he said. Leander knelt before Mila could respond. "May I?" Mila hesitated. A breath. Then she nodded. He tied the small sneaker slowly, fingers steady despite the storm in his chest. When he finished, Aaron smiled and patted his shoulder. "Thank you." His voice was small but sincere. "Anytime," Leander whispered. Mila's throat worked around a restrained swallow. "We should go," she said again. She turned toward the street. He watched them step outside into the swirling snow. Mila pulled Aaron's hat lower. The little boy laughed, chasing his own breath in the cold air. Leander stood there until they turned the corner and disappeared. He did not return to work. He did not answer his phone. He walked aimlessly through the city, his breath clouding in the cold. People moved around him. Cars honked. Life continued in all its noisy insistence. But inside, he felt nothing but an echo. A child with his eyes. A woman he broke but never forgot. For years gone. He pressed a hand to his chest as though the ache might be physical. Somewhere, a street musician played a slow guitar. A song about regret. About coming home too late. He sat on a bench and listened until the strings blurred with the thrum of passing buses. He whispered to the cold air. "I failed you both." He stayed there a long time. He did not move until the sun dipped behind buildings and the winter shadows lengthened. Then he stood. And did the only thing that made sense. He went to find them. He did not follow them directly from the cafe. He waited. He gave space. He let logic sit alongside desperation. He searched for the building she had entered after breakfast. He thought he had missed her. He retraced his steps. Then he spotted her half a block away, emerging from a small grocery store with a paper bag in her arms and Aaron walking beside her. Leander stopped across the street, watching her check both ways before taking Aaron's hand and guiding him across. A warmth spread in his chest, admiration mixed with grief. She reached an older building with a cracked brick exterior and climbed the stairs. A faded laundromat stood to the left. A florist with wilting poinsettias sat to the right. She disappeared inside. He remained frozen for a few seconds. Then he crossed the street and climbed the same stairs. At the top, he stopped. His pulse thundered. Then he knocked. The hallway smelled faintly of laundry detergent and someone cooking onions behind a closed door. There was the click of a lock. The door opened just enough for her face to appear. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was sharper than in the hotel. Not angry. Defensive. Protective. "I followed at a distance," he said. "Not to spy. Just to make sure you got home safe. We were fine." "I know. So why are you here?" "I want to help." The laugh that escaped her held no humor. "Help," she repeated. "You do not get to use that word like you understand the weight of it." "I want to," he said. She opened the door wider, revealing the small entryway behind her. Aaron's shoes sat neatly by the wall. A tiny blue jacket hung from a hook. "Come inside," she said finally. 5 minutes. He stepped in. The warmth of the space enveloped him. The apartment was small but organized. A narrow hallway led into a living room with soft lighting. Toys were stacked in bins. Photos hung on strings across a wall. A small couch sat near the window. Everything felt lived in. Everything felt like home. His throat tightened. Aaron looked up from a coloring book on the floor. "Hi," the boy said. "You came." The simple statement nearly undid him. Mila crossed her arms. "You have 5 minutes. Use them wisely." Leander nodded. He knelt in front of Aaron again. "Hi," he said softly. Aaron held up the paper. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I do now," Leander replied. The boy giggled. "Look. This one is eating a pizza." Leander smiled. "It must be very happy." Aaron nodded seriously as if dinosaur dietary choices were sacred. Mila watched them quietly, arms folded tightly across her chest. Guarded. Afraid of what hope might do to her. Leander looked up at her. "I know I have no right to be here," he said. "But I want to be. Let me stay. Let me learn how to be part of this world." She swallowed hard. "You cannot just walk into his life," she said. "He is not a project. He is not something you can manage." "I know. He is a child. A child who gets attached easily. A child who notices everything." "I know. And if you hurt him?" "I will not," he said quietly. "How do I know that?" "You do not," he admitted. "All I can do is show you." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she exhaled slowly. 5 minutes are up." He stood. "Mila." She shook her head. "Do not make promises you cannot keep. Do not give him something you are not ready to hold." She moved toward the door. He hesitated. "I am not leaving again," he said quietly. Her breath caught. But she opened the door anyway. "Good night, Leander." He stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind him. He stood there, staring at the peeling paint on the opposite wall. Then he whispered the truth he should have said years ago. "I love you." The hallway swallowed the words whole. He did not sleep. He spent the night in his car parked across the street from her building, watching the light in her window flicker between darkness and a faint glow. He watched tenants come and go. He watched winter deepen around the corners of the city. And he waited. Not to force anything. Not to chase. Just to be close enough if something went wrong. When dawn broke, pale and thin, he drove back to his penthouse to shower and change. Then he returned. He knocked again that evening. Mila opened the door with a startled breath. You came back. You did not tell me to stay away. I should have. But you did not. Her jaw tightened. You cannot keep coming here. I will leave if you tell me to, he said. But I need you to say it. She said nothing. The silence stretched. Then she stepped back. Fine, she said. 15 minutes. He walked inside. Aaron saw him and grinned. You came back. Yes, Leander said. I hoped I would. The boy ran to him, holding up a small stuffed fox. Look. His name is Pepper. Hello, Pepper, Leander said solemnly. Aaron laughed and thrust the toy into his hands. You hold him. Leander glanced at Mila. She watched, arms folded again. You let him stay last time, Aaron said. Can he stay again? Mila's lips parted. She hesitated. Only for a few minutes, she said. Aaron cheered. Leander felt something inside him crack open. The next day, he came back again. And again. And every time, she gave him a little more time. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. Just minutes. But minutes were how trust begins. By the fourth visit, something had shifted in the air. A tentative rhythm began to settle. A quiet pattern. Mila cooked small meals. Leander washed the dishes afterward. Aaron built block towers that collapsed dramatically. One evening, Leander arrived to find Aaron in the living room wearing mismatched socks and holding a cardboard crown. Look, Aaron said proudly. I am the king. Leander knelt. Your Majesty, he said with a small bow. Your crown is very impressive. Aaron beamed and placed the crown on Leander's head. You can be my knight. He laughed softly. I would be honored. Mila watched from the kitchen doorway, her expression unreadable. Later, when Aaron was busy drawing, she approached him. You are getting too close, she said quietly. I want to be close. That is what scares me. Why? Because Aaron likes you, she whispered. And I do not know how to protect him from you if you change your mind. He inhaled sharply. I am not leaving. You say that now. I mean it now. She blinked hard. People mean things until life gets difficult. Then let me get through the difficult part, he said softly. Let me prove that I can stay. She looked away. I do not know how to trust you again. That is all right, he said. I will do the trusting for both of us until you catch up. Her breath wavered. She turned away, her steps brisk. But she did not ask him to leave. On the fifth night, everything changed. Mila came home late, her hair windblown, her hands shaking. She pushed the door open with her shoulder, Aaron half asleep in her arms, his cheeks flushed and eyes heavy. Leander stood from the couch instantly. What happened? He has a fever, she whispered. The clinic was full. They said to come back tomorrow. I do not know what to do. Her voice cracked. The exhaustion she had carried like armor slipped. Leander stepped forward. Let me take him. She froze. Then, trembling, she passed Aaron into his arms. The little boy whimpered softly and buried his face into Leander's chest, his fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. Leander held him gently but securely. His forehead was burning. It is high, Leander said quietly. We need a doctor now. Mila nodded, wiping a tear with the back of her hand. I know someone, he said. He owes me a favor. He will see us immediately. Mila hesitated. Then she whispered. Okay. He carried Aaron to the car, Mila climbing into the back seat with them. She kept a hand on Aaron's leg the whole time. Within minutes, they reached a quiet medical office. Inside, the pediatrician examined Erin as Mila held her breath. Leander stepped closer when she swayed. "He will be all right," Leander murmured. "I promise." "Do not promise things," she whispered. "Just stay." And so he stayed. He stayed while the doctor checked Erin's temperature. He stayed while the boy cried from discomfort. He stayed when Mila looked like she was about to crumble. He stayed when the pediatrician handed over medication and guidelines. He stayed when they returned home, carrying Erin gently inside. When the boy finally fell asleep on the couch, Mila sank into a chair and pressed her hands to her face. "You did not panic," she said, her voice thin. "You were calm." "I had to be," he said quietly. "He needed me." She looked at him then, really looked. "I needed you," she whispered. Something in his chest burned. He stepped closer. "I am here," he whispered back. And for the first time since he returned, she did not turn away. At 2 a.m, she woke gasping from a nightmare. Her breaths came fast. Too fast. She stumbled into the kitchen for water. He was already there. "Mila," he said gently. "What is wrong?" She shook her head, trying to hide the tremble in her hands. "Nothing. I am fine." "You are not." Her voice cracked. "I have done everything alone for 4 years," she whispered. "I cannot do it again if you leave." "I am not leaving," he said firmly. "I cannot survive losing you twice." "You will not." She shook her head. "Words do not mean anything to me anymore." He stepped back, respecting her space. "Then let my actions speak." Silence. Her shoulders softened. She took a step forward. Then another. And then she rested her forehead against his chest. "I do not need you to save me," she whispered. "I know," he murmured. "I just want to stand beside you." Her breath shuddered. She did not pull away. Over the next 2 weeks, a new rhythm grew. Leander made breakfast. Mila packed lunches. Erin told them stories about imaginary dragons. And slowly, gently, Mila's walls began to crack. One night, Erin fell asleep on Leander's chest. Mila approached, a small smile on her lips. "He likes you," she whispered. "I like him," Leander replied. She hesitated. "Do you want to put him to bed?" He froze. "Yes." He lifted Erin carefully and tucked him into bed. When he came back, she was standing by the window. She turned. "Stay," she whispered. "Tonight, stay." He nodded. "I will sleep on the couch." She nodded back. Their eyes met. Everything unspoken moved between them. A week later, she found him sitting quietly on the floor of Erin's room, the nightlight glowing softly. He held up one of Erin's drawings. A family of stick figures. A mother. A child. A man standing beside them. Her breath stilled. "He drew me," Leander whispered. She swallowed. "He sees you," she said softly. "Kids know when someone keeps showing up." He looked at her, eyes tired. "Mila. I need to tell you something." She stiffened. "For years ago, I did not leave because I stopped loving you," he said quietly. "I left because I was afraid. I let other people tell me what mattered. And I chose wrong." She stared at him. "I cannot undo what I did," he continued. "But I can be here now. I can show you that I am not that man anymore." Her eyes glistened. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know. I still love you," she said. "And that scares me more." He rose slowly and walked toward her. "You do not have to decide anything tonight." She shook her head. "No. I do." She took his hand. I choose you, she said. But you cannot ever leave again. His voice broke. I am not going anywhere. She stepped into his arms. And this time, she did not pull away. Their new life did not explode into existence overnight. It grew quietly. Like warmth spreading slowly through a cold room. Like light sliding in through a narrow crack. The next morning felt different. Not because anything dramatic happened. But because of something smaller, something more powerful. The air felt safe. Leander woke up on the couch to the soft sound of someone humming in the kitchen. The melody drifted through the apartment gently, rising and falling like a smile someone had forgotten they were wearing. He blinked against the morning light. His back ached faintly from the couch, but the ache felt honest, earned, almost comforting. When he stood, he saw Mila at the counter preparing breakfast. Her hair was loose today, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Aaron sat on a stool beside her, swinging his legs while drawing on a scrap of paper. Leander leaned on the doorway. Morning. Mila didn't look at him. She flipped a pancake. You snore, she said. His eyebrows lifted. I do not snore. You snored. Impossible. Aaron turned around, giggling. You snored like a dragon. Leander pressed a hand to his chest. A fearsome dragon or a dignified dragon? A loud one, Aaron said. Mila hid a smile. Leander stepped further into the kitchen. Need help? You can pour the juice, she said. He did. Carefully. As if the simple act meant something. Maybe it did. Breakfast passed with an ease that felt new, fragile, yet real. By the time the plates were washed and Aaron was getting ready for school, Mila stood near the door tying his scarf. Say thank you, she reminded softly. Aaron nodded. Thank you for staying. Leander knelt beside him. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Aaron hugged him quickly, a soft, warm press of tiny arms around his neck. Then the boy pulled back and ran toward the door. Leander rose slowly, the warmth of that hug lingering. Mila watched him carefully. Not with suspicion. With something closer to recognition. You should go, she said quietly. You must have work. I can take some calls from here. You have a company to run, Leander. You have a child to raise. She exhaled. And that is why you need to work, she said. Do not lose your life because of mine. He smiled softly. Maybe I am just reorganizing my priorities. She looked away quickly, as if the softness in his voice was too much to face. See you tonight, she murmured. He nodded and stepped outside with her and Aaron. He watched them walk away. For the first time in years, the future did not look like a spreadsheet. It looked like hope. Over the next days, routine settled into place. But it was not the same routine as before. This was different. This was family, blooming at the edges of wounds. Every morning, he walked Aaron halfway to school with Mila. At first, he kept a little distance, careful not to intrude too deeply into routines she built on her own. But Aaron changed that dynamic almost immediately. On the second morning, he reached up and grabbed Leander's hand. Just like that. As if it had always belonged there. Mila's breath caught. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The small gesture said everything. Aaron trusted him. Maybe she was beginning to trust him too. One evening, as snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, they played a board game on the living room floor. Aaron sat cross-legged, deeply focused on the tiny wooden pieces. You cannot put your piece there, Aaron said, frowning at Leander. Why not? Because that is lava. Ah. Leander nodded solemnly. Of course. Silly of me. Mila laughed softly from the couch. You are terrible at this game, she teased. I am trying my best. Try harder. The king is watching. Aaron puffed out his cheeks proudly. I am the king. Yes, your highness, Leander murmured with a tiny bow. Mila shook her head, smiling behind her hand. Moments like this felt so natural, so easy, that sometimes she forgot to guard herself. Sometimes she forgot the pain. Sometimes she allowed herself to enjoy the sight of Leander laughing with their son. Sometimes she let herself believe. But that belief terrified her. Later that week, something happened that neither of them expected. The three of them were at a small grocery store, picking up ingredients for dinner. Aaron pushed a tiny kid-sized cart, bumping it into Leander's leg repeatedly. Careful, Mila warned. He is fine, Leander said. I have sturdy legs. Aaron giggled wickedly and steered the cart with exaggerated seriousness. They were halfway through the produce aisle when an older woman approached with a warm smile. What a beautiful family, she said kindly. Your little boy is adorable. Mila froze. Leander froze. Aaron looked up, beaming. Thank you. The woman patted his head. You look just like your father. Silence. Raw, shaken silence. The woman walked away, oblivious to the earthquake she left behind. Aaron tugged Leander's sleeve. See. I told you we have the same eyes. Leander's throat tightened. Mila's hands trembled on the cart. He looked at her, trying to read the storm behind her eyes. Hurt. Hope. Fear. Something fragile and wild and unknown. She looked away sharply. We should go, she said. Mila. Not here, she whispered. They paid in silence. They walked home in silence. But inside the apartment, once the groceries were unpacked and Aaron was busy playing in his room, she finally turned to him. She said we were a family, Mila murmured. We are. Her eyes flashed. Not yet. He stepped closer. Then let me earn the right to say, we. She swallowed hard. I am trying, she whispered. But every time things start to feel normal, something reminds me of how easily you left. I regret it, he said. Every day. Regret does not change the past. No, he agreed. But love can change the future. Her breath hitched. He reached out slowly, giving her enough time to stop him. She didn't. He brushed his fingers against her cheek. You do not have to forgive me today, he said softly. You do not owe me that. But I am here. And I am not going anywhere. Her eyes glistened. She closed them for a brief moment. When she opened them, something had softened. Okay, she whispered. A single word. But it meant everything. The next night, it happened. The moment their dynamic shifted forever. Aaron had fallen asleep early, curled on the couch with a blanket tucked around him. Mila sat nearby, scrolling through photos on her laptop. Editing. The glow of the screen touched her face with a soft light. Leander sat beside her, reading through emails with the intensity of someone rebuilding his life piece by piece. After a while, Mila closed her laptop gently. Leander. He looked up instantly. She hesitated. You can go home now, she said softly. If you want. He raised an eyebrow. Do you want me to go home? She exhaled. I want you to do what you want to do. He closed his laptop. I want to stay. Her heart fluttered painfully. On the couch, she added quickly. Nothing more. He nodded. Of course. She stood. As she walked past him, she paused. Then she did something unexpected. She reached down and touched his hand. Just once. A quick, trembling brush of her fingers against his. He froze. She whispered, "Good night," and walked away. He sat there long after she disappeared into her room. He touched the spot where her hand had been. And he smiled. A small, stunned smile. Like he had just been handed something fragile and priceless. A few days later, another shift came. This time, from Aaron. They were building a Lego fortress. Mila was cooking in the kitchen, humming faintly. Leander was struggling to connect two tiny pieces, squinting as if the toy required stock market precision. Aaron plopped a chunk of Lego onto the fortress roof. "This is the Daddy Tower," he announced proudly. Leander froze. Mila froze. Aaron continued, oblivious. "The Daddy Tower is big and strong. It protects the castle from dragons." Leander swallowed slowly. "That is a very important tower," he said quietly. "Yeah." Aaron grinned, pushing another piece into place. "Because daddies keep you safe." Mila pressed a hand to her chest, her eyes stinging. Leander's jaw tightened. He touched the Lego tower gently, almost reverently. "I will keep you safe," he said softly. Aaron nodded enthusiastically. "I know." Mila had to step into the hallway to breathe. That evening, Mila found Leander staring at a photo of her and Aaron taped loosely to the fridge. It was slightly blurry, taken during a day at the park. Aaron had a stick. Mila had an ice cream. Both of them looked happy in a way that came from simplicity, not perfection. Leander traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. "When was this taken?" "Last summer." "You look happy." She shrugged. "Aaron makes everything brighter." He nodded. Then he asked something unexpected. "Do you have any pictures from when you were pregnant?" She froze. He turned to face her slowly. "Mila. I missed everything," he said quietly. "I missed his first kick. His first cry. His first laugh. His first steps. I missed all the nights you must have been terrified. I missed every milestone." His voice cracked. "I want to know what it looked like," he whispered. "Those years I should have been here." She looked away, her eyes shimmering. "I do not know if I am ready to share that part," she whispered. "That's okay," he said gently. "Whenever you are ready. Or if you never are." She blinked hard. Then she went to a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. She held it to her chest for a moment. Then she handed it to him. "These are not for keeping," she said. "Just for seeing." He opened the envelope. His breath caught. The first photo showed her sitting on a park bench, sunlight falling on her round belly. She had a faint smile, tired but peaceful. The second photo showed her in the mirror, hand on her stomach, eyes filled with something between love and fear. The third photo. He froze. It was of Mila in a hospital bed. Holding a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her lips were pressed against the baby's forehead. And she was alone. His vision blurred. He touched the photo with a trembling finger. "Mila." She looked away quickly. "I do not like those pictures," she whispered. "They remind me of how alone I was." He shook his head slowly. "You were not alone," he said. "You just did not have the person you needed." Her breath wavered. "And I am sorry," he whispered. "I am so sorry you did that without me." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it fast. "I do not want pity." "This is not pity," he said. "This is regret." She pressed the envelope back into his hands. "I kept them because he deserves to know he was loved before he was born," she whispered. "Not because I wanted to remember what happened." He handed the envelope back gently. "Thank you for showing me." She nodded once. A fragile acknowledgement. Then she exhaled, long and shaking. You should sit, she said softly. Dinner is almost ready. He sat. But his heart was not steady again for a long time. That weekend, Mila agreed to let him accompany them to the park. The snow had softened, leaving behind patches of gray slush. But Aaron was bouncing with excitement. Can you push me on the swing? He asked. Of course, Leander said. Aaron ran ahead, his small boots splashing through puddles. Mila walked beside Leander slowly. You do not have to do everything, she said. I want to. Wanting is different from being ready. He inhaled. I am ready. Are you? Yes. She looked at him for a long moment. Okay. Aaron was already climbing onto the swing, gripping the chains. Push me higher. Leander chuckled. Hold tight, he warned. He pushed gently, afraid of being too rough. Aaron squealed with joy. Higher. All right, a little higher. Mila watched them, arms crossed, a mixture of fear and warmth in her expression. At one point, Aaron called out. Mama, look. Daddy is pushing me. The word hung in the air. Mila froze. Leander froze too. The air thinned. His hand trembled on the swing chain. Aaron giggled innocently. Mila's eyes glistened. Aaron, she whispered gently. We have talked about this. You can call him Leander for now. The boy blinked. But he feels like a daddy. Leander felt something collapse inside him. Not in pain. In awe. He knelt in front of Aaron. You can call me whatever feels right, he said softly. And one day, if your mom agrees, I would be honored to be your dad officially. Aaron smiled and hugged him around the neck. Mila watched silently. Her heart shook behind her ribs. That one moment changed everything. At home later, after dinner, after bath time, after bedtime stories, Mila walked into the living room to find Leander sitting on the couch looking emotionally undone. She hesitated. Are you all right? He looked up, eyes filled with something raw. He called me daddy, he whispered. She nodded slowly. I know. He ran a hand over his face. I do not deserve that. Maybe not, she said softly. But he gave it to you. And you. He swallowed. You did not correct him right away. Her chest lifted with a shaky breath. No, she admitted. Because I realized something. What? She looked at him then. Really looked. You are not trying to replace him, she said. You are trying to earn him. And you, he asked. What about earning you? You are doing that too, she said softly. Slowly. Silence filled the room. Soft. Warm. Then she sat beside him. Not at the far end of the couch. Not in the middle. But close. Close enough that their arms brushed. Close enough that her shoulder rested just barely against his. He did not move. He did not dare. She whispered. I am not ready for everything. I know. But I am not afraid of you anymore, she said. His breath caught. She looked at him then. Really looked. And very slowly, she leaned in and kissed his cheek. A soft, trembling kiss. Then another. And then she whispered. Stay tonight. Not on the couch. His heart stopped. Mila. This is not about rushing, she said. This is about choosing. Are you choosing me? She nodded once, tears shimmering at the edges of her lashes. Yes, she whispered. This time. I am choosing you. He took her face in his hands. And kissed her. Gently. Slowly. Like he was afraid she might disappear again. And she kissed him back. Soft. Real. True. If you are still listening to this story, take a moment to like this video so more people who love emotional narratives can find it. And tell me in the comments. Do you believe people deserve a second chance at love? Tell me below. I am reading every comment. Now breathe. Because their journey is not over yet. The night they finally let their walls fall was not a night of fireworks. Not a night of dramatic confessions or sweeping gestures. It was quiet. Soft. A moment born not from passion, but from understanding. After that kiss, they stayed in each other's arms for a long time. Neither spoke. Neither moved. The apartment felt like it was holding its breath, as if afraid that the smallest shift might break the fragile peace forming between them. Eventually, Mila rested her head against his chest and closed her eyes. He wrapped his arms around her gently, like she was something sacred. They did not rush anything. They simply stayed. Later, when she took his hand and led him toward her bedroom, her movements were slow, hesitant, but sure. She paused in the doorway, looking back at him with a vulnerability she had not allowed in years. "You do not get to disappear after this," she whispered. He stepped closer. "I will not disappear," he said. "Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not ever again." She searched his face. Looking for lies. Looking for the man who had once left her without warning. She did not find him. The man standing in front of her now was different. Softer. Broken in the right places. Stronger in the places that mattered. She nodded. And together, they walked inside. The next morning, sunlight drifted through the curtains in gentle streaks. Mila woke first. She lay still for a moment, watching the rise and fall of Leander's chest beside her. He looked peaceful in a way she had never seen. His face relaxed. His body loose. Vulnerable. The kind of vulnerability he never allowed in his world of polished marble floors and boardroom battles. She reached out instinctively, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. His eyes opened slowly. For a moment, he simply looked at her, a soft smile forming at the edges of his lips. "Good morning," he murmured. She flushed faintly. "Good morning." He lifted a hand and touched her cheek. "Are you all right?" She nodded. "Are you worried?" he asked softly. "A little," she admitted. "I am afraid that this was just a moment. That you will wake up and remember who you are." His brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" "A man who lives in a world where everything is calculated. Everything is a decision. A man who left me once. A man who might think this was a mistake." He sat up slowly, turning fully toward her. "Mila," he said quietly. "Nothing about last night was a mistake. I stopped making decisions out of fear when I walked back into your life." She swallowed. "And this," he continued, reaching for her hand, "is not something I will ever regret. I promise you that." She looked down at their intertwined fingers. "You keep making promises." "I know. And one day," she whispered, "you might break one." He cupped her face gently. "Then I will spend the rest of my life keeping the others." Her breath trembled. A knock interrupted the moment. Then a small voice. "Mama." They both froze. "Mama, I am hungry." Mila's eyes widened. "Oh no." Leander chuckled. "He is awake." "Get dressed," she whispered urgently. "He cannot see you here." "Not yet." "Mila," he murmured, "he is going to know soon enough." "Not like this," she said. "I need time." He nodded. "I understand." He slipped out of the room quietly, grabbing his shirt from the floor. Mila hurried after him, smoothing her hair and trying not to look exhausted. She opened the door. Aaron stood there in dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up. "Mama, why were you talking to yourself?" She blinked. "I was not talking to myself." "It sounded like it," he said, yawning. "Can I have cereal?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Go sit." Aaron ran to the kitchen. Mila turned to find Leander leaning against the wall, fully dressed, trying not to laugh. "This is not funny," she whispered. "It is a little funny." She glared, but her lips twitched. "You should go before he comes back." "I will be here tonight," he said softly. "If you want me to be." She hesitated. Then she nodded. "I want that." He reached for her hand one last time, squeezing it gently. "I will see you tonight," he whispered. And then he left. For the next few days, everything felt different. Softer. Warmer. There were still guarded moments, still shadows of the past lingering in corners, but something had changed between them. Something irreversible. They moved around each other with a comfortable awareness. Their conversations were no longer heavy. They laughed more. They shared inside jokes again. They rediscovered the rhythm they once had, but slower, more intentional. The world outside continued its noise, but inside that apartment, they were building something steady. Something real. One evening, after dinner, Aaron climbed into Leander's lap uninvited and held up a book. "Read this one," he said firmly. Leander smiled. "The Dragon Book again. It is my favorite." "I know." He started reading. Mila sat on the opposite couch, watching them. Watching her son lean against his father's chest. Watching her son listen to the deep voice he trusted instinctively. Watching Leander trace the edge of each page with tenderness. And she realized something. She was not afraid anymore. Not of losing Leander. Not of trusting him. Not of hurting again. Because the fear of losing something real was better than the emptiness of never trying. When the story finished, Aaron touched Leander's face. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Leander smiled softly. "If your mama says yes." Aaron looked at Mila with wide eyes. "Mama, can he come tomorrow?" Mila's heart squeezed. "Yes," she said quietly. "He can come tomorrow." Aaron grinned and hugged Leander's neck. Something inside Leander broke at that. The good kind of breaking. The kind that lets light in. Later that night, after Aaron fell asleep, Mila stepped onto the small balcony outside the living room. Snow drifted slowly beneath the streetlights. The world felt silent. Leander joined her. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different everything feels," she whispered. "About how scared I was to let you back in. About how scared I still am." He touched her hand lightly. "Fear means it matters." She closed her eyes. "I want this to work," she whispered. "I want us to be a family. But sometimes I feel like this is all too fragile. Like one wrong step will shatter everything. Then we will walk carefully," he murmured. She opened her eyes. He moved closer until he stood behind her, wrapping his arms around her gently. "You and I," he whispered against her hair, "we are not the same people we were 4 years ago. We are stronger now. Wiser. More willing to fight." She leaned back into him slowly. "Do you really believe that?" "I do." She turned in his arms. "What about your father?" she whispered. "Your firm. Your reputation. What happens when they find out you have a son?" His expression firmed. "I do not care. You cared before." "I cared about the wrong things," he said. "Not anymore." She studied him. "Are you sure?" "Yes." She searched his face for any sign of hesitation. She found none. She rested her head on his chest. I have loved you for a long time, Leander, she whispered. Even when I tried not to. Even when I hated you. He held her tighter. I never stopped loving you, he whispered back. Even when I pretended I did. The next afternoon, everything changed. Leander had just arrived at the apartment with a bag of groceries when a sleek black car pulled up across the street. A man in a dark coat stepped out. His hair was silver at the temples. His expression sharp, calculating. Leander froze. His father. Mila came outside onto the steps, scanning the street for Aaron, who was practicing jumping over a patch of snow. She saw the man. Her face paled. Leander, she whispered sharply. Who is that? Leander's jaw clenched. My father. His father crossed the street, his steps confident, his gaze cool and assessing. So it is true, he said without greeting. You have been hiding something. Leander stepped forward protectively. What are you doing here? I came to see the damage, his father said flatly. Rumors reached the board. They asked me if you were distracted. If you were compromised again. Mila's spine stiffened. Leander's eyes darkened. I am not compromised, he said quietly. I am building a life. His father scoffed. With her. Leander stepped between them. Do not speak to her like that. You are throwing away everything, his father snapped. Your legacy. Your future. Your standing. For a woman who. Enough, Leander said sharply. Aaron turned, noticing the tension. Mama. His small voice trembled. Mila rushed to him, pulling him close. Leander's father stared at the child. This is him, he said. Your mistake. Leander's body went rigid. Mistake, he repeated, voice dangerously soft. His father shrugged coldly. He does not belong in the Drake lineage. Leander stepped closer until he stood eye to eye with the older man. He is my son. His father's jaw clenched. You have a duty. My duty is to him, Leander said fiercely. And to Mila. His father stared in disbelief. You would throw away everything for them. I would burn everything for them, Leander said quietly. Silence fell. Cold. Heavy. His father shook his head. You disappoint me. I can live with that, Leander murmured. I cannot live with repeating your mistakes. The older man stiffened. You are making a choice you cannot undo. I know. His father stepped back. This family, he said, will not support you if you choose this path. Then I will build a different family, Leander replied. His father turned sharply and walked back toward the car. Before he stepped inside, he said one last thing. That child will never carry the Drake name. Leander's voice carried across the street. He already carries the only part of me that matters. The door slammed. The car drove away. Mila stood trembling on the apartment steps, Aaron tucked into her side. Leander, she whispered. What just happened? He looked at her. At Aaron. At the fragile, beautiful life he wanted more than anything. I chose you, he said softly. And I will keep choosing you. Her breath broke. She stepped toward him. He wrapped his arms around her and the child. For the first time, they stood together. Not as fragments of a broken past. But as a family. Weeks passed. The tension with Leander's family faded into background noise. The board whispered. Reporters speculated. But none of it mattered. Every night he returned to Mila and Aaron. Every morning he walked them to school. Every day he earned back the trust he lost. Slowly. Gently. Patiently. Until one evening, as the three of them sat on the living room floor building a cardboard fort, Aaron looked up with sleepy eyes and asked the question that changed everything. "Mama," he said softly. "Is he my daddy now?" Mila looked at Leander. Leander looked at her. She took Aaron's small hand gently. "He always was," she whispered. "We are just learning how to be a family." Aaron nodded sleepily and leaned against Leander's shoulder. Leander closed his eyes. Just for a moment. And when he opened them, Mila was watching him with soft, unguarded eyes. They had made it. Through heartbreak. Through fear. Through time. Through mistakes. They had found each other again. Not because fate demanded it. But because they chose it. Every day. Little by little. And in that tiny apartment, surrounded by cardboard walls and toy dinosaurs, they found something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. Something worth healing for. They found home. If you are here at this moment, listening to the end of their journey, take a second now to like this video so more people who love stories like this can find it. Leave me a comment and tell me. Do you believe in second chances? And if this is the kind of story that left your heart a little warmer than before, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode of Echoes of the Heart with Dr. Collins. I will see you in the next story.